Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 12 of the Audible Farm podcast. I'm your host. My name's Peter Stockdale. This week I sit down with Jeremy Ober. I've looked up to him for quite a while. He's always present in the scene around me up in northern Iowa. He travels a lot. He plays a lot of shows every year. It's what he does for a living, and I guess that's every musician's dream. So that's a pretty cool thing. We sit down, we talk about how he got started playing music, some of his first biggest influences, and we talk about his bands Brutal Republic as well as Lone Tree Revival. If you ever get the chance, go check them out live. But we'll talk more about it here in the upcoming podcast. I just want to let everybody know that I am fielding offers for sponsors still. I am kind of doing it on the side. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to go about doing it and what the cost rate would be and all that other stuff. But that's just a bunch of nonsense that nobody cares about because they're here to listen to me talk with Jeremy Ober. So let's get to that. This is episode number 12, Jeremy Ober. It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale. So I'm sitting down today with Jeremy Ober. I'm going to turn my mic down just a touch. All right, I'm sitting down today with Jeremy Ober, and we're just going to discuss a whole bunch of different things. I've known you for a while. We haven't really, I guess I would say, interacted on a personal level very much.
Right.
Maybe in the last 10 years or so. But how did you get started playing guitar? I guess because it's always I've always been curious, and for almost as long as I've known you, you've played guitar.
Well, I started playing when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
It was just one of those things. I think I was watching a TV commercial,
Mm-hmm.
and Crazy Train came on,
Nice.
and that was like the thing. Like from that point, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that."
Yeah.
And so I got real heavy into. I've always liked music. I always liked music as a kid, but I never really had too much of favorite bands. I'd listen to anything and everything. So that was the first time I really got into a particular type of music, I guess.
So you kind of struck by Randy Rhoads, I guess, maybe, or or just the style of music in
At the time, I
general.
didn't even know it was Randy Rhoads. You know, I was just like, oh, I like Ozzy Osbourne. So it took me forever to realize that there were even numerous guitars for Ozzy Osbourne. And so like to me, it was just I'm an Ozzy fan.
I totally pick up on that because I remember one of the first times I ever realized that there were like multiple guitarists for multiple bands, and then you start to really listen to it, and you're like, oh, I can pick out which guitarist is playing on which album now.
Right. Yeah.
So you kind of liked Ozzy. Was it like the style of music that you liked, or was it like Ozzy in general, or?
I guess it's not as if Ozzy's a great musician in and of himself. He's
True.
not. He's not even considered really. You couldn't even say he's a great singer.
Yeah, true.
But
Definitely.
He's a great product though.
Oh yeah.
He always surrounds himself with. He's kind of like a legend factory. Like everyone he touches becomes this rock god status. And so I guess you could give him credit for that.
Yeah, I wonder what the deal with that is. Like, do you think he has the ability to handpick these people, or do you think he's chucking the amount of cash at them that he?
As far as I know, yeah, he does. Because I think it was his last solo album where he got Gus G.
Mm-hmm.
There were all sorts of people that tried out, and Buckethead actually tried out.
Yeah.
And auditioned, and Buckethead was actually his first choice in the audition, but Buckethead showed up like in full garb, with the bucket on his head and the mask and everything.
Yep.
And so Ozzy was like, well, you got the job, but like you got to take that mask off. I need to see your face.
Ooh.
And Buckethead refused.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, then you don't have the job.
Yep. That's actually kind of crazy. I mean, that is you hear about that happen a little bit here and there in the music scene where someone's like, we're doing it this way, and a guy says, I don't do that. And sometimes, it's not like they hate each other for it, but they're not making music together, so it's
right.
Maybe it's our loss, but it's whatever.
I thought Gus G did a fine job.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Who's your favorite Aussie guitarist, then? Let's throw that out there.
Oh, I'd have to say Randy Rhoads, I suppose. Yeah.
I don't know why I've always been a Jake E. Lee fan.
Jake E. Lee, I think, is one of the most underrated guitar players in rock
Yeah.
of all time. Like he just doesn't get the credit, that he deserves.
Yeah. He was the one that covered for Randy when Randy died, correct?
Yeah.
He was he was in between Zach and Randy.
Yep.
Yep. So,
Yep.
and I always felt like that's kind of like the forgotten era of Ozzy songs. Like you hear them on the radio, but there's only a couple. You usually hear like what "Shot in the Dark" maybe might be one of them.
Yeah, Shot in the Dark, Bark at the Moon.
Yep. But yeah, I mean those are some awesome guitar licks coming out of, like, I don't know why Ozzy's always had some of the best guitarists around, but the dude is, I mean, even going back to his childhood with Black Sabbath, he had Tony Iommi next to him.
Yeah.
Maybe not being one of the greatest then, but like now.
Well, Black Sabbath now is like one of my top 3 bands of all time.
Now
so,
it's an easily an arguable one of the best bands. So
yeah.
So you, I'm assuming metal is probably your preferred style of music.
I can't say it is. No, I actually don't like most metal.
Yeah.
Most metal actually kind of bores me.
I actually tend to agree. Let me ask you this: why do you think that is?
It's just I don't know. There's a lot of predictability to it, especially now, I guess. Although I do know some great metal bands, it's more like when I do get into a metal band, I'm kind of obsessed with them.
Yeah.
But there's just few metal bands that I really dig all that much.
I totally get you. Do you think any of that has something to do with the fact that, like, I don't know, most people that like metal music seem to like a certain flavor. Like, I discussed this online with somebody the other day, how, like, Iron Maiden style metal is like one kind of general style, and then you've got, I guess you could call it like your Aussie style, or like maybe your like Motorhead style that's a little bit faster.
Right.
So there's like a handful of different styles, and then you get to the newer stuff where it's like, I mean, there's kind of like a Disturbed kind of style of metal that's out there too now. And I mean, there's lots of stuff with incoherent vocals that I just lump into one some, but there's tons of people that'll get mad at me for saying that because, like, well, this is Doom, and Doom's totally not the same as stoner metal. And I mean,
Gotcha.
I mean, there's just like 1,000 different styles of metal, so I would definitely have to say, in order to be able to like all of them, is kind of, I don't know if anybody actually honestly likes every style of metal.
I think I could find, there's not any genre or subgenre of music that I can't find good things in. It's just, as a whole, it's just not going to hold my interest, most likely,
Yeah.
I love Iron Maiden like the next guy,
Yep.
Big band for me right now is Mastodon.
Heck yeah, dude.
I'm a big Mastodon fan, and I've always been like a big Opeth fan.
Yep.
But then I'm also a Hatebreed fan. I like Hatebreed a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff like that, But I mean, Mastodon and Opeth, out of those bands that I just named, are the only ones that where I'll like consistently sit down and listen to them.
Yeah. I think Mastodon, for them, they've got like some of the best music videos going on today. Like, their music videos are sick.
I don't dig music videos. So.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I don't like music videos as a rule.
Oh man, that I mean, it's whatever, but I definitely recommend watching them because, like,
I've seen a few. Yeah,
they're pretty funny. Like,
yeah.
I mean, even if they're not funny, they're like ridiculously serious, and it makes me wonder who's, that's a lot of production going into their videos.
I agree.
So, what kind of music would you say that you prefer to play then on a guitar, if metal's not necessarily the preferred?
Well, that's a difficult thing because we kind of do everything in the Republic, So I mean, we write metal songs.
Yep.
And but I mean, we also write country songs and blues songs and folk songs and
oh yeah,
whatever. So I mean, it's kind of out of my hands to a certain extent. I mean, I might have a subject matter to write about, and usually that dictates what kind of song it's going to be. So
I do recall some of your earlier material with Brutal Republic being heavier, and I remember going through a time span where I hadn't heard anything new from you in a while, and maybe that's just because I wasn't looking for it at the time, because 20s, everybody's 20s are a little different.
Yeah.
But I remember listening to Mason at 92.1 play East Side Window on the radio, and I didn't know that was you guys until he had announced it as you guys, and it was one of those things where I was just like, holy crap, this is a long stretch from what I had originally had in my mind as to what Brutal Republic was.
Sure.
And I mean, that song is amazing.
Well, thank you.
I mean, it's tough to just sit across the couch from somebody and be like, dude, the song is so good. But dude, that's a great song. I mean,
it's 3 chords.
I mean, I've heard a ton of people saying great things about it. You got a lot of YouTube views on that song. Even I've sent it to some people to be like, check this out. This is a guy from my area wrote this song, and people are like, holy crap, that's a pretty damn good song.
Thank you. That's kind.
So I mean, good music comes out of everywhere. Let's talk about that music video, since we're not, you're not a music video fan. Who all's in the music video? Because there's some people in there that I may not know directly.
Right. So the lineup of Brutal Republic at that time was Blake Erickson, Marcus Anderson, and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Chris Carr and Jeff Blummel come in, and they're in the video.
Yep.
And they do the actual backup vocals on the recording of the song.
Sweet.
And we recorded the album that song is off of Full White Moon.
Mm-hmm.
And everything on that album is recorded with Chris outside of one song, Five Nights, which was recorded in Otho with Kurt Kaufman.
Oh, nice.
And so, but Chris Carr had a large hand in a lot of things on that album. He did a lot of playing on it himself.
Yep.
And he produced the whole thing. I mean, he's one of the best to work with in that capacity.
Yeah. So Brutal Republic has kind of like changed over the years. Do you think that is it like something that's kind of by your design to just keep it morphing, or is it just the way bands do and it just keeps changing and you? I mean, I'm assuming you're the figurehead of Brutal Republic. Like that's kind of maybe your baby, more or less.
I'm the only consistent member.
Yeah.
I'm the only original member of the band.
Yeah,
I should say.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what caused all the lineup changes, and like what caused like the transformation of music styles, or is it just kind of growing as a musician that has done that?
Well, I mean, it could be anything. From ultimately, I suppose I have to an extent creative control and the say of who's employed, I suppose.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
True.
We've gone through a lot of drummers and a lot of bass players and stuff, and sometimes it's just I mean, at this point, I guess I appreciate the time that everyone's put into the band.
Absolutely.
And I'll take whatever time they can give me. But sometimes,
Bingo.
I mean, things change. I mean, people move or they get a different job.
Yep.
Or, they just got things that go on. So
totally,
you have to move on. As far as the styling goes, I don't know if it's really changed all that much. I mean, it probably seems to a large extent that it has. But the album Full White Moon, I mean, some of those songs that are on that album I wrote when I was 18 years old.
Oh, damn.
So, those songs have existed for all this time, but, maybe at some point you just didn't have the right players,
Yeah.
because, if you hire a metal drummer and a metal bass player,
Yep.
And then you throw a country song at them.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And so right now, we have Alex Trevino and Caleb Ferry,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have a part-time guitar player, Ronley King.
Okay.
That'll come in, basically whenever he feels like it or has the time, and he'll play shows with us.
That's cool.
And so now with these players, we have the capability of basically doing whatever we want. I can throw anything at these guys,
Nice.
and they're going to nail it. They don't have any particular style that they have to adhere to or want to.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've heard the name Caleb Ferry. He seems like a pretty busy musician.
He's very busy. Yeah.
Drummer, correct?
Yep.
I mean, like, what's the? Let me get your take on this. Is there like a shortage of drummers in the world?
I don't think so. No, but it all depends on the scenario. I mean, there's certain drummers that are only going to be able to. You're only going to be able to throw certain things at them.
Yeah.
While I mean, like in the area, in the immediate area, there's a handful of like really good drummers.
Yep.
And Ferry's one of them.
Yeah.
To where there's nothing he can't handle.
Yep.
And it's funny, because we were at a spot to where Marcus, kind of became busy with other things in his life,
Mm-hmm.
and so we were like, well, we need a drummer that can commit more time. And the first thing I thought was Ferry.
Yeah.
So I walked into the coffee shop over at Central Perk where he works, and I just walked up. Was like, hey, you wanna come and jam with us? Would you be interested in working with us? And he said, yeah. And before that, he'd been primarily a punk drummer. He'd never been in anything other than a punk band.
Mm-hmm.
And so, later on, as he told it, like apparently he was super nervous about it, getting into the different styles and everything. But
Yep.
like the first rehearsal, we threw this just monstrous 11.5 minute song at him with all these time changes and stuff. And we are like, let's see how he handles it. And he nailed it. Like, it
Oh,
was
that's
like nothing.
crazy.
So,
Yeah.
it was like by the end of that rehearsal, we had this 11.5 minute song down,
That's crazy cool.
And so the kid's a monster.
Yeah, there's a ton of drummers around, but I feel like and it's nothing against some of the people who may not be the quote unquote best, but like some of the most well versed seem to be like some of the most busy. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to pull them away to add another show to them because like some of these drummers are out there in like 4, 5, 6, 7 different bands, and it's like how do they keep it all straight? I mean,
Yeah, and Ferry's very busy because he plays with the Blue Ribbon Ramblers,
Yep.
obviously, and they're very busy.
Yep.
So I mean, if he's not playing with us, he's playing with them. It's very rare that he has a weekend without a show.
Oh, jeez.
You know,
I wonder how many shows he ends up playing a year. How many shows you play a year? You're a pretty busy musician.
I average on 2 shows a week. And sometimes you can have a crazy week where you have like 4 shows in a week.
Yeah.
But on average, it's 2 shows.
So you're clearing 100 shows a year, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see your social media presence for the Brutal Republic page is usually pretty good. You're one of the best, I think, at keeping people updated with what's going on the page, and then also sharing it on your personal Facebook page. And I always thought that was one of the best things because you're scrolling through the page, and sometimes you scroll through and you just don't see something, or like, let's say Brutal Republic shares something and it might not show up on my feed, but because you shared it, now it does. And I always feel like that little bit of extra exposure, and you're always kind of telling people, well, this weekend I'm going to be here, and next weekend I'm going to be there, and there always seems to be not just a Facebook event page, but a post that goes along with it.
Right.
Is that by like design, or is that just what you do, or?
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm on Facebook. To be quite honest, otherwise I wouldn't even have an account. Because I'm not a social media kind of guy, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you think I do a good job at it. Because I always feel like I'm horrible at it. And as far as I'm just not great with technology. I'm
Yeah.
ridiculous with technology, like just ridiculous. I can't. Like right now, I can't even figure out how to put any apps on my phone because I don't know the password to do it.
Oh man.
Like it's rough. But yeah, if I can get on there and just let people know, because promotion is part of the package as far as I feel when I book something at a show. I make sure to make flyers and
Yep.
send the flyers to the
Yep.
place and promote it online, and that's part of what they're paying us for, not just strictly showing up and making noise.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
I feel like that's something that a lot of people undersell is their I want to say due obligation, but maybe it is their obligation to the venue owner or the promoter to do a little bit of your own promoting. Because I even know like down in the Des Moines area, there are promoters that will either hire you for a show or whatever, and it's not like you can expect them to do all the promoting because like you are a band and you have a community that follows you online or somewhere too. So you've got to do your due part to tell them what you're doing too.
right.
How many people that follow Brutal Republic also follow whoever some random promoter is that might be the only other person talking about it? And if they live in, if you're doing a show in just pick a town like Mason, I don't know, Mason City. Let's just say you're doing a show in Mason City, like, and they're hanging flyers up there. Because obviously it's close by, but you don't do anything here. Like nobody here is going to even know, and some people might travel to come see you even. So,
Yeah.
I definitely think you've always done a pretty good job with that. Do you use your Reverb Nation page to do
Yeah.
most of that?
Yeah, so almost everything that's posted on Facebook through us is actually through Reverb Nation.
All right.
And I mean, the reason I do that is just because it provides a link where people can go and listen to music.
Yep.
Because really I mean, we do have some stuff on YouTube, but YouTube is one thing that I'm really bad at. I don't think I've ever put anything on YouTube myself.
Oh, damn.
So everything that's on YouTube is basically put on there by somebody else.
All right. Yeah.
And so, the only place to really find, music to listen to us online is probably through Reverb Nation.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no. Let's see here. There's like no SoundCloud. None of those other.
No, I'm pretty bad at all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, sometimes you just end up diluting the water if you put it every single place. And
I suppose.
it's it's almost like one of those things where if somebody can only get something at one place, they're going to go there to go get it. But if you tell them they can go get it anywhere, then they're just kind of like, well, I don't really care then.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Sure.
it might be one of those types of deals because I always see your posts from Reverb Nation, and I feel like that's where they're from, just because I interact with Reverb Nation, so I see like the formatting of how things come out on there sometimes,
Right.
and so, but yeah, I do have to say that's probably one of the best things because even handling like Three Finger Betty's Reverb Nation page, I don't upkeep it very well, so like that's not the place to go for all the updates. I mean, there's some of them on there, but some stuff is still, I don't know, like there's shows on there that we had that got pulled that like it's still listed as like, hey, we played a show here on this date and we actually didn't. So there's a couple of those on there, but
Yeah.
I do have to say that like social media is one of those things. You ever thought about having somebody like record one of your live sets, or are there any like really good live sets online?
There's not any live set. Our last single that we put out on Reverb Nation, and that Brad Hofing, the bass player for Blue Ribbon Ramblers,
Yep.
he came and ran sound for us at this pipeline protest rally here in town,
Yep.
and the guy's just he's got an engineer's mind. He's a farmer, but he has the mind of an engineer.
Yep.
You know, I mean, the guy just knows. Like you can sit there and listen to him talk, and sometimes I'm just sitting there nodding politely because I don't understand the lingo that he's even throwing at me. You know,
I totally get what
but
you're
he's
saying.
a super interesting guy, and he's got a hell of a mind on him. And so he has an interface that he was able to record the
Nice.
set with, and truth be told, a lot of that stuff just will never see the light of day because I just played really bad that show.
Yeah.
And so he went through the time and mixed up some songs and stuff, and he's like, oh, I got a really good mix on this, and I listened to it. It's like, man, I can't let anyone hear me play like that.
Yeah.
You know.
That is
But we did a cover of Crossroads,
okay.
the old blues tune.
Yep.
You know, and so that's our single on Reverb Nation.
Oh,
So,
cool. Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have to say, like, when I first started doing Audible Farm, I would do like live recordings and live video of bands, and I always waited to get their permission for that exact reason. Because what if they thought it wasn't their best effort?
Right.
And then and even though the audio is good, it's like I'd rather have bad audio with a bad effort, because if you have good audio with a bad effort, they can tell the mistakes you're making if they compare it to an album. You know,
Right.
so then it's one of those deals where it's like I always, every time I ever uploaded anything, I would give it to the band first and leave it private so they would get to view it and tell me whether or not they wanted me to upload it. And sometimes I've had to do the little bit of work ahead of time, show it to the band, and it ends up just getting thrown by the wayside, which
Right.
which happens. But I definitely like to do that just for the sake of the band, because when I started doing it, I just wanted to make sure that bands that didn't have a platform to display some of their stuff had a platform. You know, if you don't have any videos on YouTube, I'll videotape you and I'll throw you up on YouTube. And then, like I said, you got to give it up to the band to let them decide whether or not they want to put it out there.
Sure.
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen you play live, and I've always wanted to come record you play live. And I don't know what your thoughts on any of that are, but
Oh, I'm totally down. Yeah.
cool. I mean, I don't ever use too much fancy stuff. For the most part, it's just a GoPro and a little digital recorder. But
Sure.
so yeah, man. I mean, you we were talking about Chris Carr a little bit earlier, and one of the things that I know you do as a job is you do guitar lessons. And Chris has got a music shop, and you do guitar lessons there.
Yeah, over at Eight Stone Music. Yep.
How did you get started in on that, or how did you get introduced to Chris?
Well, I started teaching guitar when I was 18
Nice.
at Riemann Music.
Cool.
So Shadrick Smith,
yeah, Shadrick. Yeah.
yeah, local legend.
Yeah, dude.
So he basically gave me my first real job, I guess. I've never had to have a real job in my adult life, which I'm very grateful for.
I would be too, man.
So I've been teaching and playing ever since, and so I've been teaching for about 15-ish years now.
That's pretty awesome.
And so at a point, Chris Carr started up Ace Note Music, and he was obviously a close friend of mine. And so I told him I would teach at his store, but not until Shadrick and Paulette, which were kind of the two figureheads at Raymond Music.
Yep.
I told him that once they retired, would jump to his store.
Makes sense.
So that's what happened, and I can't even tell you how long I've been teaching at eighth note now. Time flies now, but yeah, I've been keeping fairly busy with it.
Yeah, so you ended up like filling out all of your, I guess, due obligations to the people that you owed them to at Reman's.
Yeah.
And then you went over to Eighth Note, started doing lessons down there. I've snuck into Eighth Note a couple times the last couple years and talked to Chris here and there. And I remember one time seeing you were in there with a student doing a lesson. You guys got a really cool little lesson room in there
Yeah.
with sliding glass doors and stuff.
Yeah.
Relatively soundproof. Like I almost couldn't hear anything coming
Yeah.
out of there. It's a super nice setup.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges teaching guitar lessons?
The biggest challenge to teaching guitar lessons is just if you have a kid that doesn't want to be there. I mean, you know,
definitely.
because a lot of the time you'll have a kid that gets signed up and then he's into it for 3 months and then he decides that he doesn't want to do it, but his parents are like, well, you're going to stick it through.
Yeah.
Which I'm not even opposed to. I'm actually not opposed to forcing a kid to learn something. Because, you've never heard an adult say, man, I wish my parents wouldn't have made me take those piano lessons. They're always grateful for it when they're an adult.
Exactly.
They're like, man, I just wish I didn't miss out on all that video game time when I was a kid. like you never hear an adult say that.
No, that's true.
So I'm not opposed to making a kid learn, but it's tough to deal with sometimes. But at the same time, I got plenty of students that are just great.
Yeah.
I got a couple of kids that are just monsters. Like they're going to be better than me in 2 years. They're just monsters.
I feel the hurt, man.
Yeah.
I my very first lesson was I did a raffle to give away free lessons, and somebody won, of course.
Yep.
And they give their kid the free lesson, and their kid like openly just says to me like, I don't want to be here. I'd rather be playing video games, so I don't really even care. And I was like, oh man, I just feel like this is like everybody's wasted time and money, and I did my best, but he was just like, I'm not coming back, just so you know. And I was like, holy cow, that was my very first lesson I ever gave to
That's
anyone.
rough.
And I thought to myself, am I cut out for this? Like,
Yeah, that's rough.
and so from then on out, I said, the thing I'm going to try to make sure is that whoever's playing guitar with me at a lesson is having fun. That's first and foremost. If you're not having fun playing the guitar, you're probably not going to be too interested in it. And that was always what I didn't want somebody just to like run away again, So I always tried to teach people the basic and the fundamentals while still trying to teach them like songs they enjoy and things like that.
Yeah, that's always the goal. I mean, in the end, I want to take the student wherever they want to go with it.
Yeah.
And those are the easiest students. When I mean, if a kid comes in and he's just like, well, I don't even really listen to music, then you're gonna have a rough time.
Yeah.
But when you have a kid comes in that says, this is my favorite band, it's like, okay,
All right.
well, let's learn a few chords, and then we're gonna start doing whatever you want to do.
Yep.
And sometimes sometimes what they want to do is avenge sevenfold, which is rough, and it's like, well, you got to be patient,
Yep.
but we can get you there. I mean, nothing's unobtainable.
No.
Because when I started playing, I mean, I was starting to play with stuff that was way beyond my capacity to even do. Like the second I picked up a guitar, I was trying to learn, Metallica and Pantera and Aussie and stuff,
Yep.
And to me, it was just, I didn't even care. I was playing the songs poorly, but it was, I was just having so much fun making noise. The
Exactly.
first time I ever plugged in a distortion pedal, like I felt like the most powerful person on the earth. I just made all that noise. And I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Talking to Boss DS1, I'm sure.
Yeah, for something like that. Yeah,
It was everybody's first distortion pedal. I feel like that cheap orange Boss one.
Yep.
But it's a pretty good distortion pedal for all in all. But anyways, yeah, like lessons always seem to be a little bit difficult. What is there anything that you've take away from the lessons and incorporate, whether it be like patience or practice regimen that you recommend to other people, and then you start realizing if I utilize this with my own talents, I can push my own talents even that much further. Is there anything that because it's weird to say this, and I feel like I say this too much, but I always feel like no matter how untalented someone might be at the guitar, I still feel like I can watch them play and learn something from them somehow, even if they're like doing something slightly different than I would be doing it. And it's just like, wait, that sound is just a little bit different than the sound that comes out of mine when I play the same thing. What are you doing differently?
Well, the one thing, I've had some really great students where they just have musical tastes or musical that they bring in that want to learn that I've never even heard of.
All right.
Like I had this one kid who's a great player in and of himself, and he came in and he's like, well, I want to learn this song "Pretty Pimpin'" by Kurt Vile, and the second that I heard that, I was like, all right, so I look it up on YouTube.
Yep.
And then it turned out to be this really awesome song, and it's not what you would expect it to be by the title of it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, this is going to be some hip hop thing where I'm just going to have to figure out some sampling thing and teach them. But then it turned out to be this really cool song, and then I started getting into Kurt Vile, and this Kurt Vile's a great artist. He's kind of like a folky artist.
That's cool.
And so there's tons of times where kids will bring in something that really surprises me. And then it kind of takes me down another rabbit hole and expands.
Yep.
Because I just want to, I want to know all about all sorts of good things, and so
Yeah, exactly.
And so sometimes these kids just teach me, new avenues of music that I've never even explored. You know?
Makes sense.
So yeah.
What do you think is one of the things that keeps you open-minded as far as music-wise? Because I feel like I would definitely have to say one of my biggest fears starting a podcast and recording other bands, playing music, and even just playing shows with other bands was my own music snobbery was going to get in the way of me enjoying other people's hard work. And the more shows I went to, the less I found myself disliking things. I realized that, like, I knew how much hours these guys put into this because how many hours I put into it, and you could see how tight other bands were in it, and that just doesn't happen, And so you start really appreciating all the work that everyone's putting into it, and it helps you appreciate their art a little bit. And
Well, I'm obviously I love live music,
Yes.
So I mean, sometimes it's a rarity that I get to see it because I'm busy. Like
Yep.
we're all on the same schedule.
Yep.
So it's rough to get out to shows sometimes.
Yep.
But as long as a band plays tight, I'm gonna enjoy their set.
Yeah.
Live. It might be a band into which I would never buy their album.
Yeah.
Because it's just not my thing.
Uh-huh.
But if they play tight, I'm gonna be good with it. And I am kind of an asshole about a lot of things concerning music, and so it's just one of those things. The smallest things can turn me off of a band or a song. Because I'm a songwriter before anything else. Before I'm a guitar player, before I'm a singer. So I mean, just a stupid lyric can ruin a song for me.
Yeah. I totally feel you.
And so it's one of those things. It's a much different experience for me to listen to a recorded piece of music as opposed to a live piece of music.
Yeah.
And sometimes a good song, even when played poorly, can be very enjoyable to me. If it's got a good lyric line and an overall like the right idea. But that's why guys like Bob Dylan, did such a good job because
Exactly.
I mean he's like top 3 songwriters of all time in my book.
Yeah.
But he didn't always sound pretty doing it.
Bingo.
Same with Leonard Cohen. He's a big songwriter. God to me.
Yeah.
So, but he didn't always sound pretty.
We're gonna touch on the Bob Dylan. Some people that know me know I'm not always like the biggest Bob Dylan fan, and I base like 90% of it on the fact that his voice sounds like he's got a clothespin over his nose.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know why, but that's the disconnect that I'm talking about, where like you can easily disconnect from anything that sounds like that, and for some reason to me it's just like so blinding, where it's like I know the dude's writing good words, and like he's obviously like the best poet of our modern era maybe, but it's just one of those deals where it's like I can't stand this. I just can't stand it, man. I don't know why, but
see, a vocalist is the last thing to ever win me over to a song or a band. So the vocal quality is something I just don't really care about. As long as they're hitting the notes. I mean, if they're hitting sour notes, that's one thing.
Yes.
But the texture of someone's vocals is really pretty it's just not something I care about. You know, I'm a huge Neil Young fan.
Yep.
You know, and people don't like Neil Young for that same reason.
And that's the other weird thing. Why do I like Neil Young, but I don't like Bob Dylan? You know, Neil Young sounds like he's crying to you. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, you know, yeah.
so I don't know.
But I mean, if vocals were what won me over, I'd like a lot more bands because there's tons of bands with just super vocalists, you know, that are fronting the band, but their lyrics are so bad, I can't give them the time of day.
Yeah.
You know? But I'm an asshole on such things.
I get it. I was kind of wondered that like sometimes you do listen to bands and you're just like, wow, they this is like a $20 song with 10 cents worth of lyrics, you know, like.
Yeah.
And then you think to yourself like, I wonder if the guy saying these words wrote all these words, or if he's actually like saying them out loud and somebody else wrote them, and every time he says them, he's just like, I can't believe I have to go out here and say this every night.
You never know.
You never.
But either way, I mean, if that's the way it is, you ought to make a stand. In my mind, like don't do it if you don't want to do it.
Oh, bingo.
But,
yeah. I mean, I guess that's a good life lesson for anything there. You know, don't do it if you don't really want to.
Yeah.
So let's talk also about we did a little bit of talking about Brutal Republic, but you also play guitar in Lone Tree Revival. Who all is in Lone Tree Revival with you?
So Lone Tree Revival consists of Dan Cassidy,
Nice.
Tim Miller,
Cool.
Steve Nelson. So Dan Cassidy on trombone, Tim plays trumpet,
Yep.
Steve Nelson plays sax, Sean Menikis is the other guitar player, Jeremy Pearson is the bass player, and Dean Davis is the drummer.
Nice. I was taught my junior high. I learned trumpet in school, and Tim Miller was my band instructor. in
Okay,
junior
gotcha.
high.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculously talented musician there.
Oh yeah, he's a
for
monster.
sure. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure you could put literally any musician or any instrument in front of him, and he could play up there with the best of the people in the area. I mean, he's that good at pretty much everything,
Yeah.
and it's pretty crazy. What kind of music would you call that you guys are all playing? Like,
Well, I mean, I mean, in essence, it's a rock band.
Yep.
But I mean, it's horn-driven rock. You know, so I mean, the vast majority of what we do is covers. You know, so it's a lot of Chicago.
nice,
A lot of Ides of March.
cool.
We do some James Brown. You know, Tower
Dude,
of Power
that's
stuff.
sweet.
So Bruno Mars. Like we do just a wide variety of stuff. And we have the nice thing about the band is that there's 3 vocalists.
Yep.
So as opposed to the Republic where I have to sing. You
Yep.
know, if we do a 4-hour show, I'm singing for 4 hours.
Yep.
You know, with Lone Tree, I'm only singing a third of the songs.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time I can just sit there and dink around on guitar, have
Yeah.
a good time with it.
Yeah, that's pretty
so
cool.
it's a nice change of pace. Yeah.
How did all that come about? I mean, like, whose idea was it? Did you join in after it was already started, or how did all that come down?
Well, so the Republic hosts Jam over at Patty's Pub
Yeah.
every third Thursday,
Yeah.
and so I play with Tim Miller, Dan Cassidy, and Steve Nelson in the Humble Big Band.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And so one day I decided to try to get them in the house band for one of the jams.
Awesome.
And they thought it was a cool idea. So they did that, and I roped Sean Menikis into it. And then after that, Sean kind of took the reins after that and was like, let's make a band out of this.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's kind of Sean's baby,
Nice.
you know. But it's a pretty easy gig because, I mean, Dan Cassidy is, one of the top musicians in the area.
Yep.
And he writes all the horn charts.
Oh, cool.
And he writes horn charts like someone writes a sentence.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I mean, he'll just sit there and handwrite all that stuff like he's writing a letter to someone.
That's crazy. Like, he knows what they sound like in his head, and he just writes it. Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
I've always thought that was nuts.
And so and we got a show coming up on New Year's Eve at Patty's Pub with
Nice.
Lone Tree.
Cool.
And I'm pretty excited because he actually took one of the songs for the Republic. It's called Mardi Gras, and he wrote horn parts to it.
Oh, neat.
So I just got to hear that for the first time our last rehearsal, and I was on cloud 9. So
That's sweet.
having Dan Cassidy write a horn chart to one of your songs is pretty cool.
That is pretty awesome.
Excuse me.
I don't know if I've ever. I mean, like, I'm pretty self-conscious when it comes to songwriting because, I mean, I will be brutally honest with it, but like I'm not the greatest songwriter, and that's one reason that I don't like to particularly just go out and write songs and show them to everybody. But I think a lot of that just comes from the fact that I'm around so many people who are so good at songwriting, and maybe I need to be less self-conscious about it to get better at it. But I don't know what it would be like to write something and then have other musicians add to it and increase the value of it. I always thought that'd be something pretty cool. And I mean that's one of the reasons I joined a band was because the guy John Wah and Three Finger Betty writes most of the stuff, and I add a little bit of extra spice here and there to some of the stuff just to try to see what I can do. And he says he enjoys it, and I'm glad just to add to it. But I don't know, like, how cool is the feeling of writing music and then having people add to it, even after the fact, like even after the song's been recorded and written and everything, and somebody being like, "Oh, I even tweaked it further." It's almost like a remix, or like, how does that all feel? Like,
Well, it's great. I mean, to be honest, Mardi Gras I did write for the purpose of having horns too.
oh, okay,
So I did bring it to the table because I left a lot of room in there for horn parts.
uh huh,
And it's not the typical kind of thing that the Republic would do. It's a very strange song in comparison to a lot of our other stuff,
yeah,
because it's very jazzy. But I mean, it's still a Republic song. We'd still do it live
yeah.
as the Republic. But pardon me.
So, I mean, you don't play it with the horns when you would go play it live with the Republic, then,
Right,
because
right.
I mean, you guys don't have the horns with you.
Right, but we have Alex Trevino too on bass,
Oh, cool.
and Alex Trevino is probably the most capable musician out of all of us in the Republic.
Oh yeah.
So he went to Berkeley on a music scholarship,
Oh damn.
and he was playing in a couple of jazz ensembles in New York for a while, and then he played in Nashville for a while.
Jesus.
And the dude has a musical mind like you wouldn't believe. He's left-handed, so he plays a left-handed bass.
Yep.
But he'll come. Just this last Saturday, he showed up with a guitar, but he plays a right-handed guitar upside down.
What?
And he's a
Yeah.
better guitar player than me. Yeah,
That's nuts.
as that goes. So, like his understanding of, an instrument is far different than how I understand that instrument to work.
Yeah.
That he can do that. And so, speaking of how someone will add to a song that you write, I mean, it's very much that way even in the Republic, because even though I write all the songs, I don't write bass parts.
Yeah.
And so I just bring it and I'm like, here's the key, do whatever you want.
Yep.
And he does.
That's pretty sweet. I mean, I guess it just comes down to writing the song. I mean, what got you started into songwriting even? Like, what was the thing that made you sit down and be like, I'm going to start writing music as opposed to just, playing Metallica songs?
Well, I actually started writing music before I ever even bought an instrument. My first band was a pretty ridiculous scenario because it was just me and a bunch of friends in school. And we all decided what instruments we were going to play before anyone owned an instrument. Say, okay, you'll be guitar, you'll be bass, you'll play drums, you'll sing, And, and so that was in high school. And so we all bought our instruments. And I already had like 2 songs, quote,
Yeah.
unquote, written, where I wrote lyrics. And then I put just these awful guitar parts to them afterwards, like
Yeah.
2 days after buying my guitar, and we started playing, and I mean, we played shows. I mean, we were awful, but it was a good learning experience, You gotta write some bad stuff, But we thought we were gonna be like the next Slipknot or Cannibal Corpse or something,
Yeah.
like we were just like, oh, we're gonna be this great metal band,
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys still plays professionally. Well, the
Nice.
drummer that we eventually got still plays professionally, but I think out of that whole band, we're the only 2 that still kind of do it.
Yeah. I mean, was that like high school, junior high? What, like about what?
High school, yeah.
Yeah.
So 16 was
Yeah.
how old I was, and eventually we got Mitch Nordine. He played in my first band. He
Oh,
was
cool.
the second drummer in my first band, and he plays with Road Hard
Uh-huh.
and 7 Minutes to Midnight, I believe.
I think that's right. I mean, you're probably honestly like more well versed in this music scene than I am, just due to the fact of your like exposure to every single corner of what I would call our area. Because how far west to how far east do you play? I mean, have you played as far as Sioux City out west?
I've never been into City. I mean, we've gotten over every border except for south of us.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's a rarity that we ever get across the border and play outside of Iowa.
Yep.
But ultimately all over Iowa, you know. But a lot of it, we don't play a lot of big towns. So most of the places we play are small towns, but just
Yep.
far away.
Yeah. I mean,
Like we spent time at Fort Madison,
okay.
you know. But a lot of the towns that I've played over the years, I couldn't even remember enough to tell you their names,
I mean, yeah.
But the small towns are where we have our best shows. I mean,
Exactly.
people show up for them.
I feel like the people in the small towns appreciate somebody stopping by playing music.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's less to do and you become focal point of entertainment in a small town, especially with a bar, and it's not that everybody in small towns drink, but every small town's got a bar and it's for a reason.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I've always been I mean, jealous isn't the word, but it's like wowed by the fact that it seemed like every single weekend you were going, and sometimes it was one direction on one day and the opposite direction on another day.
Right.
And so, do you have any like rhyme or reason as to how you go about getting these gigs, or do you just kind of book them as places get a hold of you?
No, there's a portion of my day every day that I'm calling places, and I just cold call them on a phone.
Oh, heck, that works.
Yeah. I mean,
mean-
sometimes places will get a hold of me, and there are places that we do consistently play.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm always trying to look for new places, new towns that we've never been to.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
always get some new exposure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will have to say you've always done a really good job of playing a lot of different venues, and I've always thought that was pretty cool because, I mean, the handful of bands that I'm in, we seem to venture to the same handful of venues. I mean, 10 or less for both of the bands I've been in. I mean, I've only been in Unity for a year or so, and we've only played like 5 shows so far.
Right. I have yet to hear Unity.
Oh man, I think you dig it, but it comes right back down to what flavor of metal you desire. So
Right, sure.
but dang man, I'm having a blast playing with those guys. It's something that definitely was like a wake up call as far as getting my chops up,
Yeah.
because it's a completely different thing when you're playing punk music with power chords and you're only just smashing on your neck with 2 fingers and just going the whole night doing that for the most part, or articulating. And I mean, you can just watch it the way my right hand moves with Unity. It almost never moves from the bridge, and then with 3-finger Betty, I'm just all over the map on it because it doesn't really matter so much
Right.
if you're just going to play power chords.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally dig the Unity thing. And I wish I could had the ability to play more places, but I also do understand some people's reluctance to have punk bands come and play in like a small town because it's not going to be the biggest draw as like a cover band or maybe like a country band or a single guy with an acoustic guitar or whatever, And I mean, I get it. It's just the way that the music scene works. But
Right. And at one time the Republic was the same way. I mean, because I mean, I don't think he ever could have considered a full-on metal band strictly. I
Yeah.
mean, it's either metal or hard rock,
uh-huh.
But at this point in time, we've been able to fill just about any niche. So there's not much of any bill that we can't show up and play. I mean, outside, we probably couldn't hang on a punk bill.
Yeah.
And we couldn't hang on like a reggae bill or a hip hop bill. But outside of that, we could do a set in just about anything, and I think keep people fairly entertained.
Yeah.
By the end of the night, and that's kind of what I've always wanted. Not that it was a goal as far as songwriting goes, but I mean, just we have the songs to be
Yeah.
able to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, there's not we can fill a 4-hour show at a bar right now. So.
Yeah. I always try to think about that as far as like what a band is and how well they will mesh up with another band. So like let's say you're trying to set up a show and it's kind of metal-ish. Like can these bands fit in with it, like or not? And that's why I always thought it was kind of funny about 3-Finger Betty. Like it's called punk music, but is it really punk? I don't know. It's like got a lot of rock and roll in there, but it's like also super fast. So I mean, we get lumped in with a lot of metal guys a lot of times, or like even like pop punk guys sometimes, and it's like, well, this is totally not like Blink 182 punk. It's completely different style of punk, but it's I don't know. I always thought that it was kind of funny that Three Finger Betty was a little bit in the same realm where we could like go from anywhere from pop punk to metal and like rock and roll, anywhere in that little triangle we fit in pretty well.
Right.
And I
Yeah, in the early days of the Republic, we played a lot of shows with death metal bands, and as far as that goes, I mean, we do have some heavy songs, but as far as a full set goes, no, we don't. In my opinion, we don't fit. And there would be some shows where there's a disconnect with people who show up and
yeah,
play, you know, death metal, but by the end of the night, there was always people who I think appreciated it. A lot of the guys' girlfriends like liked our set just fine. Because
uh,
they've probably been sitting around like listening to death metal for like over and over again.
yeah,
And who
yeah,
knows what they like. So it's kind of like a breath of fresh air, I guess,
yeah,
in the night that we're not quite so heavy.
exactly.
Because we can't. I mean, we can't maintain that heaviness for a
Yeah.
full set. We might have a couple songs that we can get that heavy, but
You've been playing a lot longer than I have, like around the area. Do you feel like there's more or less metal bands out there nowadays, or especially like in the Iowa scene? Because like right now, I don't think there's as many as there used to be, but I still feel like there's. It seems like a lot.
well, that's a hard one for me to say because um, it. I was aware of a lot more in the beginning
Yeah.
because those were all my friends. That we were playing with, and we were playing like 45-minute sets a lot of the time, like these
Yep.
multi-band bills. Well, we don't do that anymore. We might have an opener
Uh
come,
huh.
or we might open for somebody.
Uh huh.
But I really don't like to do more than two band bills anymore
Yeah.
because there's just so much tear down and setup time, and,
Yep.
and those are the moments in a show where it gives people a chance to leave,
Bingo.
and so ultimately most of the shows that we do, we're doing a 4-hour show,
Yep.
and we don't take breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we do a straight 4 hours of music.
Yeah.
But we do like to have openers. That does take a little bit of weight off of our shoulders.
Yeah.
But as far as the metal bands go, yeah, I was aware of a lot of them. There was Stab Corp was a big band that came around here.
Yeah.
Something like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Dirt Nap was a big one.
I've heard.
Onslaught was a big
Yep.
one. Kill Pact was a big one.
Okay.
You know, and they to this day I'm fans of them.
Yeah.
Pain Face.
Okay. Yeah. I've
Pain
heard of
Face
them.
is one of my favorite Iowa metal bands of all time.
Yeah.
And but most of these guys aren't around anymore.
Yeah.
And so right now it's just hard for me to say because we don't do bills like that, and all the metal bands do like these 3 or 4 band
Yep.
bills.
Yeah, so it's like a different scene. So maybe it's just lack of exposure on your part to
I would say so.
that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
there did used to be a pretty hefty metal scene that came around to Fort Dodge about 13 to 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But no, that doesn't exist so much anymore around here.
Yeah.
I don't know about Des Moines. I don't play Des Moines much at all anymore because, I'm a full-time musician.
Yep.
So this is what pays my bills, and Des Moines doesn't pay anything.
Yeah.
So
That has always been. I almost feel like every single podcast that gets brought up, like pay structures and how they differ, even from like one town to the next, or like regions around towns to the next.
right.
A lot of places that have most of the music in Des Moines, that have most of the promotion and exposure, are either pay to play or you get bar cuts, or sometimes they'll pay you flat out right. But it's just the way it works, and like I mean that's not going to cut it for you. You're not going to go down to Des Moines and play for 4 hours and get $18, or
Right.
or even like 72. It's just like
Yeah,
is it?
it's not even feasible, because I'm paying bills with
Yep.
with this is my job.
Yeah, I mean,
You
after
know.
you pay all your gas off to drive there and back, and then you played for 4 hours, you made $16 an hour, and then it's like that doesn't even
Yeah.
for 4 hours. It just doesn't. I totally get it, and I feel like a lot of that is maybe the fact that it's not like a diluted pool, but it just feels like there's so many fish in that pond down there that in order to give everyone the exposure that either they deserve or they want, it has to take something out of somewhere, and you can't hire 8 bands a night to fill out the Vaudeville Muse for 100, $200 each, because that's $1,600, and you're not bringing that in.
Precisely.
So you end up running with a situation where you're going to have a couple people come in for free. You might pay one band, you might pay two, maybe you'll pay them all, but they're all going to get a small cut, so you end up with those weird, like, $33 paydays or something like that. And, I mean, that's just the way that it goes. And I have noticed that a little bit in traveling outside of Des Moines. Some venues do pay out more, but, I mean, still depends on what cities you go to, because I've played like places like Iowa City, and it was kind of the same deal where it's like, we'll pay you a cut of the bar because it's your first time here where you're doing a weeknight show and there's no big headliner, so we don't know how many people are going to come, so we can't guarantee you any money. And it's like, I get it. Like, I totally get it. You're not going to give us each band $100, $200 each or whatever, and then have nobody show up, because then, like, you didn't do your part, we didn't do our part, nobody came here, and it's not anybody's fault, but now you're out 200. Like, I get it. It's business decision.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's just by business model. I mean, when we first started playing, my first band, we started playing House of Bricks in like no time.
Nice.
And they started, but they hired us no questions asked.
Yeah.
Like, we were just, hey, we have a band.
Yeah.
And we come, and they're like, well, we have this day. They didn't check us out or anything. We were awful.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't good.
Yeah.
And that's a bad business model.
Yeah.
And I have pretty strong opinions on such things. I mean, as a venue, I mean, House of Bricks was cool. It was a cool place, and they had a heck of a sound system, a great sound guy.
Oh yeah.
But there's no way that my first band should have been hired to play there.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's just we weren't ready to be in that scene.
Yep.
And so with any venue, consistency is key. I mean, you have to be consistent in having music. And you have to have good music, because the second that you have people that show up and see, a bad band, like, what's going to make them come back?
Exactly.
And there was all sorts of other things in the Des Moines scene. I lived in Ankeny for a while, so that made it easier for a second. But when I didn't, I'd send them flyers, and you'd show up to the venue, and your flyers weren't hung up. And they're like, well, we don't hang up flyers. You got to hang up the flyers here. It's like, man, I sent them to you in the mail. Like, I'm not going to drive 2 hours to hang up flyers on your window.
Exactly.
Like, get some tape, hang it up on your window.
Yep.
And so, I mean, and House of Bricks ultimately failed.
Yes, it did.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
They should have, because it was a bad business model.
Yeah. And I was always kind of surprised at that place, because they would run shows for a long period of time with almost nobody in the building. Because I remember going there to see bands I liked, and just because I like them doesn't mean anybody else doesn't like them or whatever. But like some unsigned band from Atlanta that I go to see, and there's 9 people there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I don't know how much they got paid. I don't know how any of this went down.
Who knows?
But the long and short of it is nobody's here. And I mean, I was underage, so I couldn't drink, but I could still get in there, because at the time Des Moines didn't have their weird laws about yada yada. You're not old enough to be in a bar past 9 or whatever it was. But yeah, I just go hang out there and stuff, and it kind of, I always wondered how the place stayed open, because even they'd even do some weird stuff like, we're gonna do a battle of the bands, and then the place is packed front to back, and it's like, is this what is sustaining you for the whole rest of the year, or exactly?
It's hard to say. I've been to shows at House of Bricks where there was a good crowd. I've played a couple of them to where there was a lot of people there.
Yep.
But I played a lot of shows to an empty bar at House of Bricks.
Yeah.
Just where there's no one there. And which isn't necessarily a bad thing from a musician's point of view. I mean, it's good. These are all learning experiences,
Bingo. Yes.
And so this is how I learned to conduct business in the music industry. And so now I know, I'm sure there's more for me to learn.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, now I have, after 15 years, thank God, I have a little bit of a better head on me, into which I can conduct business and know our worth. Exactly. And if a bar doesn't want to pay you, there was a time into which I would have talked them down to what they wanted to pay me, and now it's just like, well, if you don't want to pay us what we're worth, then we're not showing up. And it's not, and I'm sure that sounds cocky to a certain extent, but
well, otherwise you're getting I know where you would think that, but it's if you don't know your worth, someone's going to take advantage of you, and that doesn't matter if you're a musician trying to get paid or anything.
And the music, yeah, and the music business is a shady business. There's a lot of shady people in this business.
Bingo.
You know, there's a lot of big talkers that come around,
Yep.
and eventually you got to learn your lesson and
Yep.
and know when someone's just talking and when someone actually has something to say.
Bingo.
So,
Yeah. The first gig I ever did that I got paid for, I played. Let's see here. Vic Ferrari played at Livermore Days in Livermore, Iowa, and they played there like almost every single year. And so I ended up doing the swimming pool had a show in the afternoon, and so our band ended up playing the swimming pool. And we show up, we play, and then when it's all said and done, it's time for us to get paid. We ended up getting a smaller cut than we originally were supposed to, and it ended up being this big deal where they're like, "Oh well, you guys didn't fill out. Yeah, took a little break here," and I figured out that they were going to try and swindle us one way or the other, and they did, and they just, I don't know, because what are you going to do? You know, just yell at them, you know, in front of everybody? It doesn't make any sense. But
yeah.
so that's kind of what taught me to like adjust my business model and you know, make sure that somebody values you as much as you value yourself, and you're not just going somewhere with like a giant empty promise. And
Right. And sometimes it's even a scenario into which you show up and you understand the deal going into the night to be one thing, and then it turns out to be another.
yeah,
You know, and so there was one show at House of Bricks, and I won't name the headlining band because I don't like speaking poorly of people on a public forum.
it totally makes sense.
But it was a big band,
Okay.
and they were the headliner.
Uh-huh.
The place was packed for this headliner.
Nice.
And we show up, and they're like, "You're headlining," you know. And there was one particular guy in the band, which is why everyone showed up to see.
Oh, nice.
And I pretty near got in a fist fight with him in the alley, you know, over it. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, it came down to a vote. This was the original lineup of the band. I got outvoted, and so we headlined the show, and after their set, the place just cleared out.
Yep.
You know, and it was at that point to where I was like, we're never going to be pushed around again like that. You know, like I would have rather not played the show, and at least had a little bit of dignity. You know,
Exactly.
rather than show up and have someone just push you around because there was no reason for it.
Yeah.
You know, and so the one thing about the Republic is if we have an opening band, you know, we want to treat them right and pay them.
Yep.
You know, and when we bring acts to Fort Dodge, you know, like Super Chief. Super Chief is my favorite Des Moines band right now.
Nice.
And we brought them here for an opening act,
Yep.
and people ate them up. Like
Nice.
they killed it, you
Yep.
know. And so the idea is like, we'll come back, open up for us one more time. We'll pay you this much.
Yep.
And then the next time you come back, just do your own show. Because, I mean, you know, they had such a good reception coming into Fort Dodge for the first time.
Yep.
That it's like, man, you guys can kill it, and you don't, you know, I mean, I'm not sure how they do in Des Moines, but I know the Des Moines scene's not great as far as that. I mean, they're plenty busy,
Yes.
and they have a good fan base,
Yes.
you know, because they're killer, they're an awesome band, but it's like, man, you guys should have a good fan base here, you know, and they can come to a place and get paid, you know, what they're worth, you know, because they're killer. Like, I listen to their CDs all the time. You know, like I'm just like a rabid Super Chief fan at this point. You know,
Nice.
like I just think they're just awesome. You know, and so that's kind of the point of us even bringing opening bands around is because you know, like they're big fish in the pond of Des Moines.
Yep.
You know, but Fort Dodge has never heard them.
Yeah.
You know, and they should come around because Fort Dodge is going to eat them up. You know.
Oh, yeah,
and
totally.
You know. But we like to bring bands in like that.
Yeah.
Because the more the merrier. I mean, right now the scene in Fort Dodge I think is the strongest it's been in 10 years.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I would liken that to I mean, first and foremost, the musicians getting together, working hard, and doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I always like to throw Mason's name in the hat. Mason's been doing a really good job of promoting the local scene, Fort Dodge, surrounding, like all the way down to Des Moines. I mean, I know he's gotten a hold of bands from Southern Iowa even. I mean, he does a really good job of...
Yeah, and he's a musician himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the night before Thanksgiving we played with his band, the Hampson Devils.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
And so it was hilarious. We made this big, it's the cat's out of the bag now. Our
Yeah.
feud was fake.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
had this big professional wrestling feud with these guys,
Yep.
and we were going around, defacing all of our flyers around town and stuff,
Yep.
and,
Yeah.
and, and it was hilarious. And then we did a whole interview where we were mad at them and stuff, and
Gold money,
yeah,
dude.
it was great.
I love it.
But they're hilarious. The Hampton Devils are a great act. They really did a good job and made people laugh. And Joel Hamlow is in that too, and he's just a stellar musician in and of himself.
Yeah.
You know.
What kind of music is it?
Well, it's acoustic. It's just a 2-man act.
Okay.
So it's almost, I don't want to say it, but like a Tenacious D-ish
Yeah.
kind of vibe.
I pick up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
It's tough to be like, it's like Tenacious D, and then everybody just thinks it's, yeah, I get you.
Yeah. But no, it's unique in and of itself,
Bingo.
and their
Yep.
onstage banter is hilarious and unique, and they do a great job.
I feel like some of that stage presence is some of the funnier things.
Mm-hmm.
I played a house show this weekend, and John introduced a song in one of the funniest manners, and I'd love to say what it was, but I also would have to say just come to a show and check it out because he might introduce the song again
There you go.
at a show sometime soon.
There you go. I meant to get to that show too, but the road scared me off.
I don't blame you, man.
I'm the typical Iowan.
Oh man,
Scared of the roads. I don't even think they were bad that night, as it turned out.
They weren't as bad as they could have been, but like it was, later in the night it got worse.
Yeah,
As soon as we were done playing, I sent the guys back to Des Moines. I said,
Sorry I couldn't make it, man.
No,
I
don't
meant
worry.
to make that show.
No, it's cool. I mean, we'll try to make another one. We're trying to book a show up in Humboldt coming up here soon. So if that comes to fruition, I'll definitely let you know about that. But,
There you go.
But I mean, it's like you mentioned earlier. As a busy musician yourself, you might be hard pressed to even have free time to get to the show.
It's rough, yeah.
Because it is pretty tough, believe it or not. Like my first exposure to that was, believe it or not, pro wrestling. I went to all these independent pro wrestling shows, and I always wanted to see other guys wrestle, so I always wanted to go places. And it's like, well, this guy's wrestling in Chicago on this weekend. It's like, well, that weekend's also the weekend I'm going to Minnesota because I want to see that guy. So you'd always have to like cut your losses. And I wasn't ever a wrestler, but like, I wonder if the wrestlers kind of felt the same way, where it's like, dude, one of my buddies is wrestling here, and I don't get to see him because I'm wrestling over there, So like on the very off chance they ever get either a free weekend or they're on the same show.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we were just talking, you don't play too many shows with other people now.
Not too many.
No. So anything else? Like, what kind of shows you got coming up? Let's do a little bit of quick promotion here because we're getting kind of close to an hour. So, shows coming up with the Republic.
I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head. We do have a couple booked in Iowa Falls.
Yeah.
And that's about it. We're getting actually ready to go back in the studio.
Oh, cool.
So we put out an album about, it must have been 12 or 13 years ago now, called Pioneers of Another Day. So that was our first album.
Uh-huh.
And we just didn't have the funds or the time to do it correctly. And I think now we can obtain that. So we're going to be going into Otho over at Junior's Motel.
Cool.
To recut this album. And it's going to be, for the most part, the same album as what we put out back then. There's going to be some different things about it. But we're kind of just concentrating on getting ready for that.
Yeah. How many albums you guys got in Brutal Republic?
Well, 2 officially, only one that we'll fess up to.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So Full White Moon is really the first one into which I'm satisfied with.
Yep.
But we're sitting on about 4 albums worth of material right now.
Oh, dang.
So, we can keep busy, and I think after this album gets cut, it's going to be short order that we put out another kind of folkish album.
Uh-huh.
That we'll probably be recording with Brad Hoving from the Blue Ribbon Ramblers.
Cool.
So, yeah, we're keeping busy. The summer was pretty occupied. We started up a project called the Reforge Initiative.
All right.
Here in town, and so it's kind of a community project. And we started up 2 scholarships to give out this graduating year for whether it be St. Ed's or Fort Dodge High, under Paul Reisner's name or Bill Kurt's name, which Paul Reisner was a drummer in a band I was in, Cheap Drinks.
All right. Yeah.
He was kind of the founding guy for that.
Yep.
And Bill Kurtz was just this, avid music lover, and he was essential part of the Lizard Creek Blues Society.
Nice. Yep.
So Paul Reisner, we have a business scholarship going up for, and Bill Kurtz, we have a music scholarship going up for.
Oh, that's cool.
And so we raised funds for that.
Yep.
And we're going to have a couple more the next year. So we should have 4 scholarships out
Awesome.
by next year.
That's cool. Oh, yeah. I remember seeing those come up this last year, and I mean, it sucks because normally I'd be all about donating money to something I want to see come to fruition, but I'm in a spot in my life right now where I don't necessarily have the proper cash flow to go out and donate money because my cash flow is going backwards because I don't have a job. So unfortunate there, but I love the fact that you're doing something proper for the community and giving back. I'm sure it's not going unnoticed too. Doing God's work. I don't know if spiritual or not, but either way, dude, totally. Like you're doing the work that needs to be done out there. What else? Like, have you? Let's see. We need to talk about like Lone Tree Revival. You guys got any shows coming up with them?
The only thing is just New Year's.
New Year's.
That yeah, at Patty's Pub. That's all we got booked right now.
That's gonna be stellar.
There's gonna be a fundraiser. I guess there's gonna be a fundraiser we're doing in Humboldt for the movie theater there.
Oh, cool.
To kind of renovate it.
Nice.
So,
yeah. Because they they were gonna sell that place off, and it was just gonna go away.
Yeah.
Was the thought behind it, but the city ended up buying it and starting a committee to renovate it, and now the city, I think the city owns
I believe
the
so.
movie theater. If not, the committee owns it. And
So I think it's in February. I couldn't tell you the date, but the fundraiser is going to be in February over at Rustics.
All right. All of your dates for Brutal Republic are on Facebook or Reverb Nation?
Our Facebook. Yeah.
Facebook. All right.
Yeah, so it's pretty much updated.
All right.
And that includes all acoustic gigs too.
Yep.
So anything that's, whether it be full on Brutal Republic or,
acoustic.
we'll go as Duo Republic or Acoustic
Republic. Yep.
So if it's Acoustic Republic, you're just showing up to see me sing for 4 hours and yap at you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man. So Lone Tree Revival's got a Facebook page.
Yep.
They got events on there. They list all theirs there as well.
I think so. I don't run that one.
All right. So I'll find out. I'll at least put a link to that and see if I can find any of their other information and put links to that.
I appreciate that.
I'll snag some Brutal Republic links from you and share them in the description section below, so everybody can go ahead and follow along with Jeremy and the rest of the Brutal Republic gang and see what they're all going on. Anything else you really want to give a shout out to here while we're sitting here?
I mean, there's all sorts of people I should, but
yeah. The worst part about that is you start doing the shout outs and you leave some people off.
Yeah.
And then next week you're just like, dang, I forgot all about this guy.
You know who you are.
Yeah, you knew I should have mentioned you. So, well, heck yeah, man. We got about an hour or so under our belt right now, and I'm really happy I got to sit down with you and talk to you a little bit about music and what got you started and where how you got to where you're at right now. Because whether or not you know it, there's a lot of people around here that look up to you, and I just appreciate you doing what you're doing, and just keep doing it, man.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm honored. Thank you.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Jeremy Ober, everybody. Thanks again.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, what everybody think about that one? I love that podcast. That's a good one. I've been itching to sit down with Jeremy for a while. We've been kicking around the idea and just hadn't made ends meet quite yet. But I was really glad to sit down with him. I never really got to sit down with him and talk to him too much, even though we kind of grew up somewhat in the same area. He's a fellow guitar instructor and a damn good one too. I would definitely recommend anybody in the northern Iowa area to check him out as an instructor if they got kids or they themselves want to learn to play the guitar. He does all the teaching down at 8th Note Music in Fort Dodge. You can check them out online, give him a call or whatever. Jeremy's a great guy. I love sitting down and talking to him. I did end up looking up a couple of his band dates that he's got coming up. He does have a show December 8th. That is actually this weekend, and it's in Iowa Falls. So everybody in the Iowa Falls area, go check him out. It's Acoustic Republic. I believe that's just going to be Jeremy by himself with the acoustic guitar, but It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. He's also got December 14th and 15th booked as well. 14th he's in Fort Dodge, and the 15th he's in Gilmore City. It's definitely worth looking out. I'm just going off of the Brutal Republic Facebook page for all these dates, so make sure you check Brutal Republic out on Facebook. They also have a Twitter that is updated via their Reverb Nation site. I've got that in the description as well. They also have an Instagram that's in the description. I got the Reverb Nation in the description. I also did put Lone Tree Revival. They have a Facebook page. I got that in the description as well. You know, while you're out there cruising the internet, might as well double check that you have liked and shared Audible Farm on all of your social media. Just let somebody know that you think might enjoy it. I mean, this is kind of a niche podcast, but I'm glad there's a lot of people that are enjoying it and taking to, I guess, what I'm doing here. I just want people to get to know the other people making music in their community. And Jeremy said it really well in the podcast. There's a lot of support going on right now. Not just in the north central Iowa area, but everywhere, and it's great. I love seeing it, and I just wanted to kick in any way I felt like I could. So I appreciate everybody listening. We got people from Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska. There's still people from out of the country listening. There's some people in Canada and Ireland that listen to the podcast still. So I want to say thank you to you guys for listening in on this podcast. If you like the podcast, let us know online. We are all over the place. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You'll find us. Just search for Audible Farm. I just want to say thank you one more time to everybody. Keep checking out the podcast every single week. If you want to look for more podcasts that are made in Iowa, you can check out the Podcast IA website. And they also have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that other good stuff. So check them out. They support all sorts of podcasts, including this very podcast right now that you are listening to. So I appreciate their hard work creating a network for Iowa podcasters, and just supporting what I do by all the retweets and shares and likes and comments. So thank you guys. Appreciate that very much. I will catch you guys next week on the podcast. It's going to be a good one. I guarantee it.